We all stood, frozen and staring at this beast. Then its eyes snapped to mine. It made eye contact and twitched. In fear, I let out a gasp. Its eyes perked up as it heard this, as if in pleasure. It slowly stood up, breaking my trance, and I jumped into flight mode. "Run!" I screamed, making a dash for home. Wendigo of 1995 from Brody E. This story happened to me about 24 years ago in the late fall of 1995, when I was 13 years old. I'd been at a friend's house till around 10:30 p.m., and I had set out alone on my way back home. I took my usual shortcut through the woods when I heard a sudden bellowing roar. I dropped my flashlight and spun around, looking in the direction I thought the noise had come from. But I couldn't see a thing, reassuring myself there was nothing there. I went to grab my flashlight. I bent over to pick it up when I heard a twig snap right in front of me. I jerked my head up, and then I saw it. It looked like a deer, but with limbs contorted in a way that made its silhouette look human. I fell over backward, quickly pulling myself to my feet, and then I ran blindly through the woods. At some point, I crashed into a tree, and I blacked out. When I woke up, I was lying on my back, my nose and head throbbing. I could feel blood from my broken nose trickling down my face. I looked at my watch, which read 12:01 a.m. Then I scanned my surroundings. I yanked myself to my feet and walked through the woods without a flashlight until sunrise. I then slowly made my way out of the woods and onto the street. I walked to my front door and collapsed from exhaustion. When I woke up, I was in a hospital bed for an apparent broken arm, but I was released the next day. That wraps up my quick but rather creepy story, not sure what I saw. But now that I have 3 kids of my own, I always make sure that if they walk home after dark, they have friends or an adult with them. There are things out there, whether you believe the legends or not, so it's better safe than sorry. My last post. I never thought I'd be sharing this story, but here goes. I was part of a special operations team undergoing military readiness training. We went in a freezing winter to the unforgiving wilderness of Canada. Our mission was to survive the harsh elements and test our skills in the harshest of conditions. Little did we know what awaited us in those chilling woods. We were a group of 12, bonded by our training and trust in each other. Our commander had instructed us to shoot to kill if we encountered anything in the vast wilderness. It struck me as odd. His urgency, his warnings. Did he know something we didn't? We were supposedly the only ones in that area, with other groups stationed miles apart. But I never saw any aircraft depart from the nearby station. One eerie night, as the wind howled through the trees while we were looking for firewood, we stumbled upon a creature unlike anything we had ever imagined, standing at a staggering 14 feet tall. It was a nightmare brought to life. Its desiccated skin clung to its emaciated frame, long claws and jagged antlers. The most chilling part was its face, a demonic fusion of a human and a deer, haunting our very souls. The Wendigo wore fragments of an old military uniform, a military top with a name tape that sent shivers down my spine. It bore the name of a Rogers. How was this possible? Was it an old Navy SEAL, or was it a government experiment? As panic seized our group, we engaged in a standoff with the creature, firing our ARs in desperation. But bullets seemed futile against this abomination since they went right through without resistance. We watched in horror as it mercilessly claimed the lives of my comrades, one by one. It was too fast. We could barely hit it. At that moment, survival became my only instinct. Summoning all my training and courage while it was entertained with one of my comrades, I saw a window, pointed my rifle to the center of its chest and took a shot. I hit something vital since it fell sideways, so I emptied my magazine in the same area. But I knew it wasn't over. To ensure its demise, I placed a grenade in its chest, an explosive farewell to the beast that had torn apart my team. The aftermath was grim. I escaped the wilderness alone, haunted by the memories of my fallen comrades. I made a choice. I went AWOL, disappearing into the depths of the wilderness in an undisclosed location. The government that had sent us into that nightmare had betrayed us. I had to hide not only from the horrors that pursued me, but also from the same organization I had once served. Now, I live in solitude, forever marked by that fatal encounter. I wonder how many teams went out there for the supposed training that ended up in a lethal encounter. Or were we the first ones to live through it? The wilderness is my sanctuary, my refuge from a world that turned its back on us. But my heart still races at the memory of that night, and the cold wind carries whispers of the Wendigo's presence. I write this as a warning. Stay safe out there and never trust anyone. This is my last contact with the outside world, since I think I will not last much longer. Some weird disease started, and my skin is drying up, and all I know is that I have an insatiable hunger. Farewell. My first encounter with a Wendigo by Agent 1 1776. I live in a small town in northeastern Pennsylvania. It's surrounded by farms and endless forests. As a kid, I spent most of my time fishing for trout or building stick forts. Now I have bonfires and deer hunts, so as you can imagine, I'm outside most of the time. At this point, I know almost every paw print or call of the local animals, and I can identify it almost immediately. At the age of 13, I went over to hang out at my friend's house for his birthday party in mid-June, alongside another 2 guys. We used to hang out a lot, but after this incident happened, we broke apart and all went our own ways anyway. We were crazy and imagining, exploring abandoned places, finding paranormal spirits as all the YouTubers did. At the time, about 3 miles into the forest, there was this abandoned quarry. All of us were excited to explore it, so we got the birthday boy, his name is Aiden, to lie to his dad and say we were going for a walk through the woods. Dad said yes, but to not wander off too far and to pay attention to the trees due to the sheer number of mountain lion sightings in the area. Very recently, many say they don't live here in Pennsylvania, said to be a boogeyman of sorts. But I've seen one with my own eyes. I can tell you for a fact they're here along with wolves, but we geared up, all grabbing our phones and knives. Well, at the time I didn't have a knife, but I borrowed one from the bigger guys. His name was Clayton, and he was a little out of shape, to put it nicely. He usually brought around 10 knives to the parties like some kind of deranged serial killer. Sometimes he made me worry. He also gave one to our 4th guy named Marcus, more ghetto than country, but it's okay. We got along at the time. As we packed our bags and got ready, we poked fun at each other. Me insulting Aiden's choice of footwear, wearing a pair of black and white Vans while the rest of us wore boots. Clayton poking fun at me for being the smallest guy in the group, and Marcellus backing up Clayton's insults. As we headed out the door, excited for what we were going to find in the amazing abandoned quarry, imagining old mine shafts deep in the ground where coal was mined or copper. The air seemed to change as is heavier, like when a kid in class threatens to kill everyone in the room. Yeah, that kind of heavy. Almost a primitive fear. As I eerily looked around, curious about what installed this primitive fear into my system, the others talked about what we were going to find. I think we are going to find some coal. Maybe we can sell it to some local farmer, commented Clayton in an almost wishful sort of way. It's a quarry, dumbass, not a mine shaft, yelled Aiden, furious with Clayton's idiotic comment. Aiden had a tendency to get angry over the stupidest of mistakes. Even a misspoken word was enough to set him off. Same thing, mine shaft, quarry, your mom's ass, all things worth exploring, Clayton said in a mocking tone. Shut the f*** up before I rock your world, fat ass, Aiden yelled in rage, almost about to throw a fist and knock his teeth out. As Marcellus calmed both of them down, I zoned out, as we were walking into the woods now, after going through a long field. The feeling of dread was getting stronger, and I almost wanted to run. I knew I was being watched. I always know. When someone stares at me in class, I usually look directly at them when I notice the feeling. I started to scan my surroundings. Maple trees, rocks, cliffs, bones, birds, beehives. Wait, bones? I backtracked to where I saw bones and looked a little closer. About 60 yards away, at the bottom of a cliff, was a dead deer, fresh, blood still on its bones, flesh hanging from its skull. I imagined the thing that could have mutilated it so badly and thought of a 1,000-pound black bear with rabies. Honestly, now I wish it was just a bear. Hey, dipstick, I'm talking to you. Clayton hit me with a rock and broke my trance. What? What do you want, man? I said, clearly annoyed. I said, "What the hell are you looking at?" Clayton barked, irritated that I didn't respond sooner. "Nothing. Come on, let's get going. Still another 2.5 miles till we reach the quarry." Nothing exactly exciting happened as we climbed a large hill. I felt the air get heavier and my primal fear clawing its way up my spine as if it was about to dig itself out. Once we reached the top of the hill, there was a level part, still filled with maple and birch trees and some decent-sized rocks. There was a barbed wire fence that led to a clearing, freshly mowed like a field. Aiden commented, saying that was his property, and his neighbor probably was trespassing again. As we got to the fence, I noticed something red hanging from the fence. A rag or piece of clothing covered in dried blood, and underneath it was a rusted old knife with a saw blade on one side and a sharp edge on the other. Me and Marcellus argued for a minute about who got the knife, and I gave in and let him have it. We crawled under the fence and walked through the field. Right now, we were only about half a mile away from the quarry. I zoned out again as we walked. No one was talking about anything exciting anyway, and I scanned my surroundings when my fear jumped almost right out of me. I couldn't place it as I frantically looked around. Something bad. No, something evil was nearby, and I could sense it. I was at the back of the line, so no one noticed my panic. I went tree to tree, scanning for something out of place. And when I got to a birch tree roughly 25 yards away, I saw it. There was a large, lengthy gray hand wrapped around the tree. I could almost make out claws. Then I looked up above the hand and I could just barely see the edge of a head. I looked at my friends, who got a little bit ahead of me, looked back at the tree, and the gray thing was gone. I ran to catch up with my friends, deciding to keep what I just saw quiet so I'm not made fun of for the rest of the weekend. We finally started to see a clearing up ahead with another barbed wire fence. We walked through a patch of thorn bushes, about as tall as me, and it shredded our bare torsos as we took off our shirts and hung them from our shoulders. We crouched under the fence and made it to the quarry. Now, almost 50 years later, it was just some old cow pasture. We were a little bummed out as we were hoping for the ultimate mineshaft experience, but we knew logically what we would find. There was this cool little part where the rock was cut out, leaving a 10-foot drop below to the cow pasture. We went over there and screwed around on the cliff. It was roughly 100 yards away from the tree line, so we were a little far from the woods. There was a pallet with some perfectly cut square rocks in it, and we looked through them, fascinated by how precise they were. But in the end, we just left them. Aiden got the idea to take some Instagram pictures, and as we got into position to take photos for our pages, "Aiden!" We all spun around towards the woods, hearing his dad, but it was off, almost mechanical, startled by how quiet it was. Almost a whisper, but the woods was 100 yards away. My fear crawled its way into me, and I wanted to go home knowing something was wrong. "Guys, we need to go," I stated, walking towards the tree line. The others followed. My fear grew stronger and stronger. I scanned the field, then the cliff, then the trees. As I was walking, we were at the tree line, scrambling under the fence. Snap, a branch cracked not too far from us. We all looked, Marcellus still under the fence, and we saw it. 20 yards away was this 9-foot, human-like animal. No, not animal. It stood on 2 legs like a human. Its gray, skinny arms ended at its knees, and its claws were as big as its hands. It was partially crouched, perching its elbows on its knees, staring at us with its hot red eyes. Teeth stuck out of its mouth like a piranha with large canines like a dog. Its teeth were an ugly yellow and blackish color with some bloodstains on its top row. We all stood, frozen and staring at this beast. Then its eyes snapped to mine. It made eye contact and twitched. In fear, I let out a gasp. Its eyes perked up as it heard this, as if in pleasure. It slowly stood up, breaking my trance, and I jumped into flight mode. "Run!" I screamed, making a dash for home. The field only 50 yards away. The creature let out an almost metallic human bear-like roar. Its scream filled me with fear, and I could sense the hate in its veins. This monster was primal fear. We ran like hell as it chased after us, dodging left and right, changing direction, tripping it up so it couldn't catch us. We dove under the barbed wire fence and kept running. I looked back to see it hurdle the fence like it was nothing, hot on our heels, running on all fours. I tripped over a branch and rolled, catching myself, and kept running. But this put me at the back of the line. I felt its hot breath on my back as it ran. It let out another scream, and I jumped off the nearby cliff to my right. My friends did the same. It was only a 15-foot drop onto some dead leaves and grass, so we landed somewhat nicely. Except I rolled my ankle in the process, and Aiden landed his knee on a rock. I looked back and saw I almost landed on the deer corpse from earlier, and that gave me a spark of renewed energy. The tree line was only 300 yards away, and we ran like hell. We heard it screeching and scrambling down the hill at full speed. We vaulted over rocks and slid under fallen trees, and this thing was right on us the whole time, teeth bared and roaring in hatred. I knew the only goal this abomination had was to mutilate us like the deer. We ran and ran. Then it roared again, this time sounding almost in defeat. We cleared the tree line and ran to the road. We turned back around to see where it was, and it stood in the tree line. Almost out of view, but still visible enough to see it.
Evan,
it croaked in a voice so unnatural and satanic, almost like the demons in movies, but more metallic. I didn't mention this before, but my name is Evan. My friends always call each other mean things, so we rarely said our real names. Instead of primal fear, this time I felt primal rage. I puffed out my chest and slammed my hands on my pecs. "You want a piece of me, you ugly son of a bitch? Come at me!" I screamed, a little unsettled by my primal outburst. This thing simply smiled, turned around, and walked away. We all looked at each other and went back to the house. Aiden's dad didn't hear the scream, so we had to explain nothing. We went and hid in his room in silence. None of us really talked about it much except for me. If I was to ask them now about it, they would probably say it was just a bear and that we overreacted. But I'm telling you now, there was more to come to prove suspicions, at least to me. If you watch this entire video, I appreciate your commitment, so you better appreciate mine, so hit that freaking like button before leaving. Anyway, thanks for watching, and keep watching while they're watching you.